Greetings, I'm Pillar Nexus Ancient Gladiator, and today we're going to just have a little chatting thing of going over my current game collection and what I used to own as well. Just to mainly stretch my chatting muscles, I guess. And talk about some games I used to have. And maybe some games I currently have too, because this will probably be the only time I really go into comprehensive detail of games I've used to own. So here we go. 13 Dead End Drive. That was a game I had as a little brother in the Big Brother program. One of the games I got to take with me to Pueblo. It is a silly game of trying to be the last, the one who will get the inheritance at the end when the detective comes knocking. And you have all these silly traps to knock off your opponents. It is very, very silly. 1830 classic game of railroads and stocks and trying to make the most effective deliveries to get the most money to boost your stocks and put more money in your own pockets. But you got to put money into your company into the companies too, so they can get better trains because old trains go obsolete. And if you need to put a new train in there and there's no money in the company, it's coming out of your pocket. So plan carefully. It is a solid game. It's up here for a reason. 20th Century, I own it. I've had a couple previous times owning it, and I decided to get it again because I'm always thinking Japan, Japan, Japan. I need games that I can feature without having to worry too much about text. That's why I have 20th Century. That's why I still have Endeavor. All things considered with that game. But it's still one I like. 24 game I used to own. It was a prize from school. I think it's part of an ordering thing or something. And you have this card with 4 numbers from 1 to 9. Your goal is to use addition, subtraction, multiplication, division to use each number only once towards getting 24. So, like, let's say, what would be a good one? 2, 4, 3, 1. So 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. 24 times 1 is 24. There's one way of doing it. Some of them got really hard, but I don't think there were any that had no solutions. But there were some I could not figure out. 7 Wonders, I have it. I've featured it. I like it. It's another no text to worry about kind of game, thankfully. Acquire, I have the bookshelf edition right now. I used to have the Avalon Hill cardboard tile one. I used to have the kind of over the top one that they did, like, 2017, 2018, around there, that did away with the hotels and made them other companies, and it was silly. I believe they brought it back and they went back to hotels, thankfully. Yeah, the one they did before bringing the other design back had the plastic board, and I had to paint that to make the numbers visible on the board, because holy shit. Always, always, always keep visibility in mind with any kind of game. Ad Astra can be summed up as Catan in space. I don't have it anymore. Although there's already Catan in space, so but there's still that element of game resources and trading. Has a weird scoring approach too, and this unique player cards for doing stuff is interesting. Adrenaline and team play, I still own them both. I need to figure out the team play shit and feature that. Age of Conan, I no longer have it. I've featured it. You've seen it. Agricola, a classic worker placement game that frustrates the ever-loving shit out of me. I respect the fact that it's ranked as high as it is, but it is frustrating as hell with the food shit. Worker placement games in general are kind of get on my nerves. I have enough patience for Lords of Waterdeep, and that's about it. But you're farmers just trying to get through. Alchemist is a little. It's another game that could fit into the fake it until they remake it series of videos I was doing because of the simple nature of the components. You're trying to permanently wipe out. You're trying to eliminate as many ingredients of the ingredient your school wants you to get rid of, and you're doing it by setting up recipes and getting other people to copy it to get rid of them. But when they do copy it, they give you one of the resources. So it's not a guarantee that you'll be able to get rid of what you're trying to get rid of. And it's Alchemist. There's another game called Alchemists, which is like app driven, and I'm not a big fan of app driven shit. Anachronism, I don't have it anymore. Thankfully, somebody at the auction took it out of my hands. It's not a bad game. I'm just no, thanks. Android, the game of detectives and evidence and hunches and conspiracies and dealing with the shit in your life for victory points. And of course, it would set the basis for bringing back Netrunner and spin-off games like Android Mainframe and New Angeles and Android Infiltration is a game that I wish I could have gotten. I might have to keep an eye on it, out for that one. But Android is still a decent game of stories and craziness. Mainframe, I have it once again. Anima Tactics. I have the RPG books. I still have 2 of the 3 card games. But Tactics is one I wish I could have messed with a little bit more. Your figures have action points to do stuff. And they get a certain amount back every turn to do other stuff. I know somebody had a ton of stuff for that game. And I wish I could have given it more of a chance. It's just a silly random card game of adventures and fun and randomness. I used to have Twilight of the Gods. There's no way I'm going to find that again. Yeah. And I wish I could have gotten the freaking revised edition for Shadow of Omega, but the asshole on Amazon put that box for their display, for their picture, but instead they sent the other kind. It's like, why? Don't fucking do this, man. Apocalypse Chaos, he's done it. I believe I featured it. Very difficult game. There's got to be a way to make that more manageable because there's winning the later scenarios is just too stupidly hard. Arcana, I believe I featured. It's a solid game, but I don't have it anymore. Arkham Horror, I used to have the 2nd edition, and I've tried to play it solo once. And I came very close to winning against Azathoth, and I got stuck beyond space and time in the events that was ongoing, woke him up, and destroyed the universe. So, that. You have to have somebody who knows all the rules, really. Someone who knows the rules, and someone who's willing to bash people's heads together over getting people to do teamwork, for fuck's sake. It's not a competitive game. You're supposed to work together. Asteroids, don't own anymore. It came with a digital timer. These dice would be rolled for moving the asteroids, and you'd have very little time to plan your moves to reach certain targets and such. Is a race. And then if you got hit by the asteroids, you took damage, and that affected your planning. Automobile, I don't have it anymore. It's a business game. You're trying to research various models of cars and build factories and produce them. And then there's like different kinds, um, like regular cars, consumer special cars, luxury cars, and you want to have the most recent for each to avoid being wasteful. And you're trying not to produce more than can be sold, otherwise those go to waste too. You're going to have to resort to salespeople and other stuff, advertising discounts to sell your cars. This game is why I kind of ditched one of my other business game ideas, because there's no way I could beat that. But yeah, it's a decent game. It's another Martin Wallace one. Pretty good. Axonella is classic World War II dudes on a map war game. I don't own it anymore. Um, it, just please, if you're making a game, please make reference cards for stuff. I know it seems like a lot to ask for, but just having reference cards makes things so much easier. For like, this is what this ship is. This is what it does. Summarized, the best we can. And speaking of ships, there's Axis and Allies War at Sea. I'm sure I had the land-based minis game as well, but I forgot to put it up here. War at Sea was with the battleships and lots of dice rolling and a lot of random collecting. People loved the shit out of this game at the game store. But then they introduced airplanes, and yeah, just like real life, ships don't do too well against airplanes. As a little classic game of tiles, and it's weird calling it a classic when it's 2017. But it is. There's a ton of versions for it now. You kind of have to be good at calculating just how much you're going to need and what you're looking for and preparing for. And because if you're wasteful, you lose points. Yeah. But I don't have it anymore, but it's something I'd like to play again. Just not own right now. Babylon 5, the card game. They were getting me into this because they wanted more people to play with. And I've never seen the show. I think I heard about it because of the Drew Carey show. I was like, oh wait, Babylon 5 is an actual show? They didn't make it up for that one? I ended up with the Narn deck because, I liked the way they looked. And we'd play, and there'd be this card called Prey on the Weak, and they jokingly refer to it as Prey on the Narn. But it was an interesting approach to a game. You're going to need a bunch of tokens for power, though. Backgammon, I have it. I wish it was easier to remember where the checkers start and whose side is which. Just easier. Kind of a pain in the butt. But I have it. Bards Dispense Profanity. I've never owned Cards Against Humanity before, but I saw that this was a Shakespeare-themed version, and for some reason that spoke to me. Like, yeah, I could see him getting a kick out of this one. But I don't have it anymore because I didn't want to sleeve that many freaking cards. Battle Dome was another Little Brother and the Big Brother program game of multiplayer pinball. Noisy as hell. Absolute chaos if you could get 4 players. Yeah. Wasn't really anything else like it. Battle Masters, if you're new to like minis gaming, is a good kind of gateway to here's dudes on a tray on a battlefield that's split up by hexes, so you don't have to worry about measurements, and the dice show skulls or shields to inflict wounds or protect against them. It's a good intro game. But it was my ex-brother-in-law's copy, so that's in his possession after I got to mess with it. And yeah, I don't have it. Battlefleet Gothic, because spaceships are interesting. And of course, it's usually smarter to go 2D. Uh, 3D is a gigantic pain in the butt. I used to own Squadron Strike, and I'll get to that one. But I miss my orcs. Or the orc, my orc fleet was fun. We played this briefly, and then it just kind of died out at the store. Battleground, budget hammer, basically. Your units are represented with cards, and you have a little card that does measurements. And it was just, if you like the idea of commanding an army on a battlefield, but you are on a very tight budget, it was a good game to go with. But I'm kind of, I almost wish they could bring it back because that was an interesting idea, but I don't have it anymore. I miss more Army though. Battleship Classic. Guess where the other ship is, and Blow Adele game. I don't own it anymore, and it's that low for the reason. There are other games of fighting with ships that have proven to be more interesting over the years, just like War at Sea. BattleTech, classic game of giant robots fighting each other. I still have my Atlas for it. Atlas and AS7D. That's painted to look like camouflage, but what's the point of camouflage when it's 4 stories tall and 40 stories? Who knows? I forget the scale, but it's huge, so it's going to be visible anyway. It's stompy. It's not a bad game. I just don't really want to get into it again right now. Maybe later. Betrayal of the House on the Hill in the second edition. They fixed the tiles. Yeah, the first edition I've seen, and apparently that one required errata and FAQ like 20 or so pages long. It was bad that they completely screwed that up. But the spirit of exploring a haunted house and getting caught up in whatever schemes some villain is up to, or just the house being evil itself, it made for a good Halloween time game. But I don't have that one anymore. Black Box, another little brother, the Big Brother program game, which I was very happy to find again. I'm just gonna need more a reflection, deflection, detour, some tokens. Blackjack, I have like a 3-deck set because it's just the game that I like. 3 or 4 deck set, yeah. If I ever go to a casino again, I'm either gonna play blackjack or craps. The one casino I've been to in my life, 7 Cedars in Sequim, Washington, or close to that. I went to the blackjack table with like $40. I walked away with $25.50 because I was like, okay, I'm done. I've seen enough of this roller coaster. I'm getting off. But yeah, Blaze was a game that I had and did not feature, and don't own it anymore. I got it because the whole Firebird aesthetic looks cool, but I don't think I was going to really get around to playing it. The Blockus series. Games where you have tiles and you have to touch them by corners and try to make efficient use of them while messing with your opponents. Except for Blockus 3D, which used to be Rumus. And you're trying to have touch pieces by directly of your own color while messing with your opponents, so that only your color would be visible at the topmost layer of a given part of the structure in order to win. They're decent games. If you have kids, they're worth getting, but I'm not gonna have them anymore. Bolt Action. World War II minis game. I think I was looking to get into Japan for that one. And I'm not sure what the hell happened to the player base in this town. But if it seems like there's people looking to get into that game again or get it going, I might consider it. Because it's not bad. Boss monster, random game of random cards. Trying to develop a dungeon to capture and defeat heroes. It is okay. Little pixel graphics are fun. Bottle Cap Vikings. Rondel actions and developing your capabilities. It's okay. It's just they really needed to polish it. The only reason I got this game was for the promos for Battle Cruisers. That's right. It's gonna be under eminent domain. But yeah, it's Brawl real time fighting card game. I wish I could have gotten the entirety of the set of 6, and I probably and it's like I like saving my cards to protect them, but then I'm gonna have to deal with the fact that it might have an effect on the way the game is played. But it is a game of you play your bases, you play hits on your sides to tip the balance to you. You play blocks on your opponents to stop them. A press to break through the block. A sweep to completely wipe out a base. And it's entirely possible to have a multiplayer game of absolute fucking chaos, and I love that. I wish I could have played it more, though. Britannia, I don't have any more. I featured it. Rising and Falling Civilizations on the British Isles. Classic game, but no thanks. Cash and Guns, game of foam guns and chicken. It's like, dude, are you gonna stand down? Or are you gonna take the risk of getting shot? You can only take 3 hits and then you're out of the game completely. But you're trying to get loot. And you could be the leader of the gang and have something protect you from one shot at least. And you could go first if you didn't stand down. But anyway, I don't have it anymore. Call to Adventure, I featured it. I don't have it anymore. It's okay. I wish there was a cyberpunk approach to Call to Adventure. Somebody please make that, or I will have to figure it out myself. Car Wars Deluxe Edition. There was a little sheet of paper for the racetrack, little tiny cardboard tokens for the cars. I like the more fancy version we were playing for the board game league, but overall I'm just when pieces are that small and I have to deal with folding out a paper sheet every time, it's like, oh man. And also the rules were just starting to make my head hurt. But there are people who swear by this game, so more power to them. Carcassonne, classic game of a draw a tile, place a tile, decide if you want to place your dude on there, and you might be able to score them for points. Or you make them a farmer and hope that in the long run they'll pay off. It's not bad. Carom, I got a board and stuff for a Christmas gift, and I never really got around to messing with it all that much, which is unfortunate because a lot of people love this game. It's like, maybe I should have played mine more. Get the hang of it. But I do like pool and billiards. Castellan, Red and Blue Pieces edition. You have your hand of cards. And play one to play your walls and towers. You're trying to cut off your own area, steal off your own areas to score them. Have the most to win. It's fine. Castle Panic, I don't know anymore. I featured it already. Uh, for co-op games, I don't know if I want to keep getting more co-op games. I might hold on to Pandemic, but I don't think I'll get expansions. Cav, another minis game with giant robots and vehicles and infantry. I got into the I so it's coming off the auction where I managed to sell a shitload of my stuff, get a whole bunch of money for it. It's like, cool, I've always been curious about this game. And I bought a whole bunch of stuff without really thinking too hard about which factions they're for. And apparently, I need to have infantry and other stuff to make a legitimate list. So I was like, oh crap. So that got sold at the next auction. But the figures look nice. They really do. And it's also the way the damage works in this game that it reduces stats. You could almost take the MechWarrior Dark Age approach to this game. Anyway, Chaos in the Old World. It is a good game of being an evil bastard, and I'm still kicking my own ass for giving up my copy. It's up there for a reason. You're trying to corrupt various regions. Have the most corruption when the region goes terminal, and then have the most. You're trying to progress your Chaos God dial to the end for your victory. The important thing is that you corrupt enough regions to end the game before the event deck ends the game for you, and everybody loses. There's also the Horned Rat expansion. But yeah, fun times. Checkers. Technically, I could use my backgammon pieces and put them on my chessboard, but I don't have a dedicated set anymore. It's too simple. Unless I'm playing with someone who's looking for a simple game, but meh. Chess. I have my folding chessboard that I call Foot Gouger because I dropped it on my foot that one time. I still have the scar too. I rarely get to play chess. It's a decent game I know how to play. I enjoy watching total noobs play and get everything wrong because it's more entertaining to me that way. I miss the set that I had that was freaking skulls. Skulls on the corners and sides of the board. Skulls for the pieces. The rook looked like a tower of tiny skulls. It was awesome. It was metal as fuck. I wish I had that one again. Shay Geek. Definitely not for kids. It's a card game of getting income, trying to get slack through various means, one of which is not safe for kids, for your younger audiences to know about. A very random card game of randomness. But I don't have it anymore. I don't have them listed, but I had the 2 expansions. Making the 3rd expansion a card box to hold everything was freaking brilliant. Anyway. Chinese Checkers, I'm aware of the fact that it's not Chinese. But I still like the game. But I don't have it anymore. Choose Your Own Adventure House of Danger. It's a decent game, but really you can only play it once every few months. And then you have to forget everything. Otherwise, you'll know exactly what you need to do to not fail. But even then, there's dice rolls that can screw you up anyway. It's kind of frustrating. Chrononauts, classic random card game of here's the timeline. Have fun taking actions to mess it up, fix it, and do what your character needs to do to get to their proper timeline. And try not to paradox the universe out of existence, for fuck's sake. Citadels, random card game of city building and rolls and stuff. I used to have the old Fantasy Flight one. I've got the newer, Z-Man? Yeah, that one. Where they have like 27 different rolls. 3 each, 1 through 9. I featured it. I like it. It is a very mean game. So it's kind of hard to get some people to play it. City Skylines, used to own it. I featured it already. It's a decent solo game. Although playing it with other players is interesting. To hear their comments, it's like, okay, we reached 9 on the happiness. That's like city of no importance. Oh, you mean Pueblo? Oh, for fuck's sake. Uh, yeah, if you want, if you do terribly enough, and your player group just wants to mock their own city, that's oh well. City of Heroes, CCG. I forgot who got me into curious about it, but I looked at it and was like, okay, this is interesting. I've never played the MMO, but it looks interesting with the way it is. And it never really got anywhere. I think we didn't really mess with it all that much. But it was okay. City of Remnants. Of course I have it. I featured it. I love it. It was worth the little bit of trouble I had to go through to get it back. At first, he was just gonna, it's just straight up give me my old game back. But I had Marvel Champions, and it's like, you know what, this is for you. I didn't really want to take the game back for free. I wanted to trade for it. That was my plan. So thank you for trading that back to me. Civilization. This is the French Tresham one, but it was done by Gibson's, and it is not compatible with Advanced Civ. But if you're curious about that old style, that old kind of Civ game, it's worth checking out. I just wish it, also had some of the more advanced stuff, because advanced Civ stuff is really cool. So it's kind of disappointing it didn't feature it. Civilization: A New Dawn. So this is coming from the Sid Meier's Civ universe. It's a more streamlined experience, but as other people have discussed, streamlined does not necessarily mean better. It just means taking things out. And sometimes taking things out takes out some of the fucking soul of the game. Going back to City of Remnants. There's a re-implementation called Neon Gods, and I was reading about that one. It's like, I think I'll stick to City of Remnants, thank you. But this one's probably for what it is, it's all right. Clash of Cultures, and Clash of Cultures Monumental Edition. So the older version is the one I had first. And it's like, okay, I'm sold on this idea. Are there expansions? Oh, wait, they're stupid ass expensive. Never mind. Which is why Monumental Edition came out. I jumped right on that. It is just a good game. It's up there because it deserves to be. Cloud Fantasy. I own it. I have the starters. I have one booster box. I want to get one more booster box post tax return time, because with what I have, I can't really add those to the starter decks because some of them are like high points, and I don't have enough to do a second stack either. It's like shit. Cold War CIA versus KBGB, a random card game of randomness for 2 players. A game of pushing your luck. It's okay. Coliseum is a game I missed the ever living shit out of, and now finding a copy is hard because they're priced way the fuck high. You have your arena, and you can take actions to expand it, and you get assets, and you're trying to do these programs to get money and points. You're trying to set the highest bar you can with your program. So you don't accumulate points, you're raising the bar each time. If not, then you just are where you are. But you get the money based on how that performance went. You can do the performances with less assets, but then you're going to get less points and money for it. It is such a nice game, though. It's one of the rare things that uses a roll and move aspect for, like, the Emperor, the Senators, and the consuls. to come into your arena and enjoy the show and get you even more prestige. But yeah, I miss having that one. Damn it. Concordia Solitaria, I have those ones. I am very seriously looking at expanding this for next year. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing, buying new games and shit next year, but I want to think about what games I can expand, and Concordia is right at the top of my list of games I can expand out. Connect 4, classic game of drop checkers into a grid and get 4 in a row. You've seen various digital implementations played by VTubers, hopefully. Yeah. I don't have it anymore, though. Conquest of Pangaea was a weird fucking game. It had a lot of potential, too, and they fucked it up. It just wasn't what it could have been, I think. And also, if you're going to name your cards something, maybe rethink what you're naming them if it turns out that there's a specific 2-word term that you're calling them that's also used by not so good people. just saying. Anyway, Constantinopolis classic. It's weird calling them classic when it's only 2010, but it's a good game of you have your ships and you produce goods and you get other buildings to help with producing goods and doing other things with them, and you take on contracts to get money and points. And it's just a good game. I don't have it anymore, but it's one I would keep an eye out for to add to the collection and definitely feature here on my channel. Container. Again, I want to call it classic, but it's just it's just amazing what it does with such simple components, really. I featured it as part of my Fake It Until They Remake It, but otherwise I don't really own a copy. I don't own the core space for Sporn anymore, unless it doesn't sell at the used game shelf. It's okay. Costa Rica, a game of pushing your luck. You have your expedition, and you move it, and you flip it up, and it either gives you 1 or 2 things that you can collect. And it might also have a mosquito, which is bad. If you get 2, then the whole thing just falls apart, and you go home empty-handed, and just try and collect the most stuff. It's an okay game. Cribbage. My mom loves cribbage. It is a 2-player classic. This deserves the title of classic. All right. But it's a race game of cards and stuff. It's just a nice game for 2 players. Give it a shot if you haven't. Crossfire, silly little game of shooting marbles across this little hockey field kind of thing. It's fun when you're 8, 9, 10 years old. Crew the Oil Game is another one that I featured with the Fake It Until They Remake It. Hilariously, the guy who had City of Remnants also had Screwed the Oil Game. Maybe I can see about getting it back. Cutthroat Cabins, with my favorite tagline of without teamwork you won't survive, without betrayal you won't win. Something like that. Is a dungeon crawler game of trying to time your hit so that you're the one that deals the killing blow for the infamy or fame. But the longer the fight goes on, the more damage players are going to take. I had a bunch of expansions for it. I wish I'd done more with it. But it's alright. Cypher, I featured it. Random card game of randomness. But Cyberpunk, so of course I'm going to keep it. Dark Souls, the board game. because I never played the video game, PC game, whatever. Um, it's okay. I like the miniatures though, but it was definitely it got hard if you didn't get your equipment built up, and you had to play the campaign mode, which is really just a long grind. And it's okay. The block hole 2-player game of pieces with shaped like dice that you can roll on the edge to the next space and change their capabilities. It's an interesting idea. It resembles something I tried to do for a game design long ago. But, Decatur. I have this weird theory that there's a warehouse somewhere with a bunch of copies of this stacked from floor to ceiling, or I think it was a dream. Um, this kind of European Empire thing and shipping and all that, and just it was okay. I never opened up the copy that I had. I ended up like trying to. I found it at the uh, thrift store that deals with estates and all that. It's like, oh hey, this is unopened. I'm going to sell it and hope I can get my money back, or then some. Deluxe Diplomacy, which had the wooden pieces, which is why I was trying to work on wooden pieces for my copy. And I don't have that one anymore, so I'm going to have to put them somewhere else. But this is how I first learned about Diplomacy, the board game. Yeah. Descent, Journeys in the Dark, which I currently own. I used to have the expansions, and I am kicking my ass so hard for giving up on the entire fucking collection that what was I thinking? I had the entire fucking thing, and why did I sell it? Why? Yeah, there's no getting the expansions for this one as much as I can. I'm just priced out right now. Deus is a game that I used to own. That was something I got from the Board Game League. And it's a game I'm reconsidering for finding for Pillar Loves Tabletop games. Maybe next year. Maybe. You have your hand of cards. You can use them to play and put out a building somewhere and then resolve the actions. You're trying to get goods and stuff and put that towards other stuff to get points, money. Try to surround barbarian villages to make them surrender. Get points for that. Trying to build temples. And it's just a nice little game of building your card tableau, and I want to get it again. But I'm going to have to look at the expansion stuff too. Diplomacy, I don't have it anymore. Dixit, random card game of interpretive visualization. It's a nice family game. I just like the whole. The clues people can give range from anywhere from as simple as courtship to damn you, Rick Moranis. I still can't believe I got that one when he pulled that on me. When he played that one, that was a really lucky guess on my part. But yeah, don't have any more. But it's a good game. The two Doom the board games. The old one that basically served as a test run for what would become Descent, and the newer one, which is okay, but I think the players are way too powerful in that one. I want to find the older one though. Again, getting the expansion is out of the question though, because that one's expensive. But it would be nice to find an old copy in great condition. DBZ CGG, which I played way back when, and then they brought it back, and I jumped in on that for a while. It was a decent game, although some characters, some matchups between characters is just there's no hope. There's also character and Toko Iwaza combinations that were broken as hell, and there were some cards later in the series that were basically a wall of text, and that's about where the game gets. Yeah, that was where the game was coming to an end anyway. Dream Home, random card game of building your house, drafting cards to do stuff, and getting other things to help you out. It's a simple game, but it's a nice one for just friendly game night. Drop Zone Commander. I was. What the hell was that army? Right, Post-Human Republic, PHR. I had a ton of shit for that one, and I never played once. I like the idea, though, of massive mobilization. And I believe um, I painted one of my Scorpion tanks to look like a Tachikoma. See if anyone still has that one floating around. Duel Masters. It's a good game that I never really got to play a whole lot. But I like the way the game ran in terms of mechanics. Just you have shields, your opponent destroys them, those shields go to your hand, and you have more options to work with. But then then if you're hit with no shields, then you lose. I played the PS2 version. That was fun. But I have no cards left for that one. Dune is the recent reprint, and it's good, and I'd like to play it. I've seen it featured. Alrighty. Okay, next is a Dungeon Command. So basically you'd have your set of figures and these cards and these dungeon tiles, and you'd fight over treasure and stuff. It's an interesting concept. I'm wondering if that's what they brought back with Dungeons and Dragons Onslaught. But I was looking at getting other figures for this one, and apparently those other sets are expensive. But it is an interesting idea. I should have tried this out with somebody first. Okay. Dungeon Lords. Another game of build a dungeon, get heroes to enter, and then beat the crap out of them with monsters and traps. It is a nice game. It's also it is tough though. With it's got this worker placement element for getting stuff that you need to make your dungeons. Dungeon Twister, 2-player race of getting to the opposite side of the dungeon by rotating tiles, opening doors, and stuff. I had expansions for it too, and I never really got to mess with it. I just remember seeing it play at the game store. It's like, oh, cool, I want to get this. And then, like so many games in my collection, I never really got to play it. But I got to look through the game and get an understanding of it. That's what I like doing. Chainmail, minis game. I Missed My Door for Me. It was an interesting approach. D&D Dice Masters. I liked the D&D set, but I never really got to play that with anyone because everyone wanted to do Marvel, DC, Dice Masters stuff, and I didn't really care much for that. But that's building off of the Quarriors engine. Anyway, D&D Adventure Begins. It was not worth it. It's silly. What is worth it is Castle Ravenloft board game. That one was fun. Automated opponent. You got your characters, you can get experience and go up a level and do better. It'd be nice to mess with that one again, but I want to explore some of the other ones that they did using that system. Dust, basically Risk meets Weird War type stuff. Actually, even the Risk part's kind of not all there because it has this weird approach with the card-based initiative and combat moves and buying units. And then that set up a whole universe for a minis game as well. But if you played Risk, but you're looking for something a little bit more challenging, but you're not up to taking on Alex's and Allies, Dust is pretty good. Easy Money is another. Was it another Little Brother in the Big Brother program thing for me? My mom likes this game too, but it's just roll, go around the board, get stuff, get money. There might be a slim chance to get a lot of money. Eclipse, New Dawn for the Galaxy. I've featured that one, I believe. It's a decent game. I'm just trying to make space. It's a big game. Edition War is a silly random card game of trying to get more people come into your table for your edition of the game, the role-playing game or whatever. It's a good way to kill a few minutes, I guess. 8-Man Empire, that was a holy crap, I got this game while I was in Port Angeles game. It's quick. It might take you a little more than 8 minutes the first time you're playing the game, but it's good for being a quick game. Call to Arms, I wish I'd given it more of a chance. It's a minis combat game set in the Elder Scrolls verse. There's more in the Skyrim type of thing. It was getting into this that got me to take up Morrowind. I don't know if my computer can handle any other games more advanced than that. And I was just curious about it. I just wish the starter set actually came with some miniatures to mess with. But it has some interesting ideas. Eldritch cooperative game of globe hopping to fight Cthulhu and other Eldritch horrors. It was nice. A little bit easier to beat than Arkham Horror, but still tricky at times. Okay. Then Eminent Domain and Battle Cruisers. So Eminent Domain itself is a card builder or deck builder game. It has its own weird approach to it. Battle Cruisers is a spin-off, and it's the one that I have featured. The Heavy Assault cards were the promos that were in the Bottle Cap Vikings. But yeah, I'll probably be holding on to it this time. So let's see if I can find the promos again. Encounters Shadowrun, a push your luck game of dice and trying to claim cards and get money and all this other stuff. It's alright. Endeavor, I own it. I featured it. Comparatively simple mechanics meets not too popular theme these days. But I'm holding on to it again because Japan. It's a lack of text makes things a little bit easier to deal with, I think. Epic Armageddon. Oh, hold on. Another minis game of I want to say close to War Master scale, but it was 40k universe. I had a ton of orcs for that one. It would be nice to get back into this and maybe get some, show it off and like see who would be interested in playing. Because I like that skill a little bit better. Eve Conquest and Eve the Second Genesis, the tabletop board game and the tabletop card game. Not too far off from each other in the rankings. They're both good, and I still have them. I'm surprised to see more people check out the video I did for Conquest. It's interesting. Now, if only they would, take the tabletop spaceship miniatures game approach. Should be interesting. Executive Decision, I featured it. People are still checking out that video to this day. It's kind of random when it happens. See, there's the crossover we need to have is Executive Decision with Eve. make a game out of that. Expedition Northwest Passage, which I don't have anymore. It was a game of placing tiles, moving your ship, occasionally sending out your crew to navigate the ice, and then making sure your crew got back to your ship when the ice melted, and then getting points. We're trying to find the other end of the passage and then get back. Although it's entirely possible to just turn one of the game, turn around and go home and be the first one to get back. But then you miss out on points from other stuff. Fairy Tale card drafting game, I didn't really mess with it all that much. I don't have it anymore. Fallout, I used to have. I've featured it. I've done this. Watch me play it solo. I wish they'd done the cooperative stuff as part of the core game, but at least they have that fixed now. The atomic bonds. Feudal. I'm not sure if I featured that one. Did I? I might have. It was a game of. It was sort of like a chess variant. But you could move all your pieces on your turn if you wanted to. But then your opponent can move as many other pieces as they want. And you had to get into their castle or defeat their 3 lords. I took a knife to the board and cut it across the fold lines so that the game can now be more modular with its terrain. Anyway, Finance and Fortune, I had that one briefly as a curiosity. It's not too far off from Monopoly at this point. Fire and Axe. I have it, and I featured it, and I would like to see the old version again at some point, just for the comparison. Firefly Adventures. That one came with some promos for the Firefly game. And it was interesting, this little time tracker of how much time your actions are taking, and then you're trying to get the mission done before you've used up your time. And it had the 3D terrain buildings. It's interesting. Firefly the game. The game is 10 years old now. Holy shit. There was a lot for it. I like the universe. I just think the game has issues in terms of being extensively random as it is. And you need to learn where things can be found. Like finding doctors in one place, finding guns and somewhere else. It's a tough game for that. And then our table would always have to play with this 2-hour time limit, and if nobody won by the end of it, it's like, okay, nobody wins, time's up. It's like, what? Then why the fuck were we playing if we're not going to have a winner just because the time. The 2 hours on the thing is not an actual hard time limit. It's just, a suggestion of this is about how long it might take. Because the game is very fucking random at times. But no, they just like, 2 hour time limit. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Flux, random card game. At its most random card gameness. It's something to kind of mess with if you're getting curious about game design, at least. And it's fun, fun, simple game for newer players. Forbidden Stars, the 40K reconfiguration of the StarCraft board game that came some years before it. It's okay. I like the miniatures, but I still like StarCraft better. Force of Will, trading card game. I used to have stuff for it, not anymore. It's like Magic, but you have a sort of commander as part of the game's design, and your mana sources are in their own deck. And everything is power rated in the hundreds to thousands. Why do the games do that? It's like Magic was doing fine with its, one, single digit power and toughness to the occasional doubles for unusually powerful creatures. But no, that one does it, Yu-Gi-Oh does it, Splash Sports does it. Pinball scoring power levels. Of course, in games like DBZ, it makes sense because that's what they actually were measuring. Anyway, Formula D. We actually got to mess with this one the other day. Racing game, you have dice that have certain numbers on them. And every turn you can shift up to access higher speeds or shift down because going into turns fast is how you die. Yeah. But it's just a random crazy game. Good old party night kind of thing. Frag and Gold Edition. They're technically considered the same thing for this list. Be prepared to roll a lot of dice and do a lot of math. See this? You have your 3 attributes. They affect your movement, your accuracy, your defense, I think. Not your accuracy. Your ability to take hits. Or your ability to be hit. I don't know. I forget. It's been too long. But there's a lot of math involved, and it's a deathmatch game on the tabletop that adrenaline does better, I think. I almost want to say it's kind of worth studying as part of game design. I keep right-clicking, and I need to stop right-clicking. Thankfully, the little menu doesn't come up. But yeah, just maybe mess with it for the fun of it. But there are better games, honestly. Sorry. Francis Drake, I currently have it. I don't think I'll be selling it anytime soon. It's a solid game of preparing and planning. And you're butting heads with other players as part of it, and you're trying to get points. It's a good challenge of a game without being stupidly crunchy in terms of rules. Yeah, it's. I can see why it's up here. Yeah, they're all the board game rankings. Fresco, I used to own it. You're trying to gather paint and then restore the fresco on the inner ceiling of the cathedral or church, whatever, and then get points. It's a decent game. Fuse. If you have a 10-minute timer, uh, that's all you need. You're rolling dice and you're trying to place them on cards to disarm them because they are bombs. And you have less than 10 minutes to do it, or else everybody loses. Yes, cooperative and dice rolling. Good luck on that. Gaia Project. This is an interesting power system for doing actions. And you're trying to set up buildings and things to get points and better resources. And there are goals to hit every round of the game. And there's a technology board you're trying to get up on. It's based on Terra Mystica, which I've never played. There's no military players fight each other thing, which might be nice, but if you get screwed out of something, then it just really, really sucks. Galactic Destiny. It's a space empire game where players write laws, and they have to be enforceable equally to all players. And players can vote on them. Yeah, there's an interesting concept, but I don't really mess with it. Galactic Emperor, which is space Puerto Rico. I won it at a game store board game league once, and I've also previously owned it on a entirely separate occasion as well. It's fine. It's a good 6-player game that's not too heavy, but I don't have it anymore. Galaxy's Edge is just really friggin' weird. Yeah, you can place military bases and take control of worlds, and the thing is, placing your piece in one part of the galaxy means you're going to be screwed out of doing it the next turn. The aesthetic was interesting too, but it's alright. Game election, which is not really a game, it's more of a voting system for picking which game players are going to play. It's silly. There's another thing called Start Player, where again, it's not a game, it just helps people decide who starts the game. Because there are some games that have like weird starting player silliness. Some are just like way too predictable, and there's a clear advantage. Like Splendor, first player is the youngest player, which ends up being me despite the fact that I'm almost 38. And it's like, okay, for the future, let's just do it randomly. But this might be interesting to have for a Tuesday night. Get people, say, hey, everybody needs to bring a freaking game, and then we can vote. Anyway. Game of Life. Classic game of random events, building your life. Getting married, having kids, and doing other stuff to make money, and all that. So it's silly. Game of Thrones, a board game. I featured it. You've seen it. It's a good game. It's Diplomacy 2.0, but that's probably what makes it better. Gears of War, the board game. It is up here for a reason. You have your team. Everybody plays a character, and they have abilities, and they have cards in their hand to do stuff, to take an action on their turn, and then play reaction cards, or play as reactions. But then, that's also your life. You're drawing 2 cards and you're playing 1 every turn. If you're playing reactions as well, you're not getting much health back. So, let's be very careful. If you take a wound while you have no cards in hand, you lie down and you are bleeding out. And someone else has to save you. And then if everyone's bleeding out, everybody loses the scenario. It has an automated opponent system that I want to see for more games. Yeah. Gears of War, excellent game. If you haven't tried it, good luck finding a copy. The miniatures look really freaking nice in that one. I just wish it got more missions besides just, mission pack 1. More miniatures, maybe later games. Gears of War is another one that it's like, okay, I never got into the video game, but I like the board game. That's how it was with Dark Souls as well. I very rare, There are other games I've rarely touched that's like, okay, but I like the board game version. Anyway, Globalization, silly random game of buying companies, getting their income, and then paying their upkeep, and then trying to collect sets of certain industries or certain regions of the board towards getting money bonuses that you need to claim victory. It's okay. Gloom, random card game of making your family miserable and then killing them off. It's an interesting way of telling a story. I'll leave it at that. Go! I love this game. I just want more people to play with. Really. I know there's Go online. I need to get back to that at some point. But I really just want to play with real people in the real world. And on a real table with real pieces, even though my fingers are huge and end up knocking pieces around if I'm not too careful. Go for Broke was another Little Brother and the Big Brother program board game that I got to take with me. And and it's the opposite of easy money. You're trying to take all your money and throw it away, basically. This silly game. But it can be fun, though. Goa. There are people at GameStore swear that this game is impossible or really hard to figure out. It's not that hard. You just need to remember that, when you get your plantations, they start with stuff on them. And then it's not as hard as they seem to make it think it is. But you're trying to grow spices and use them towards stuff to get points to win the game. It's alright. It was one of the last games I got to play with one of our older gamers at the store before he passed away. And I actually won that one, so I almost kind of feel bad about it. Hold on. Okay. Golf dice is a Christmas present from ages ago that I used to have. It was an interesting approach to simulating golf, and it was just like, okay, if you roll this result, skip ahead to this die. But random game is random. Goosebumps Terror in the Graveyard game was another Little Brother and the Big Brother program game. Explore this graveyard, and then it shifts, and you're trying to get the ring so you can drop a skull down the chute and eliminate this ghost. If you're good with holding that skull, you could drop it just right and go down the chute that needs to that can knock him out. Which is why if you're designing stuff like that, you're better off with something like a Plinko kind of thing. But it was silly and fun. The Great City of Rome, I believe I featured it. It's another game I'm tempted to get back again, but then again, I've already featured it, so why do I need it? It's alright. Great Western Trail, 2nd edition, I featured it. I don't have it anymore. It's okay. Grind. So if you're familiar with War Machine, It's basically a kind of soccer or hockey type of game with giant warjacks trying to move this giant spiked ball around. And then you can switch out the arms, but you kind of. It's one of those games where you want to magnetize the arms instead of trying to pull them out of the socket and then try to shove them back in again. Because that's how you break the arms. Dot hack enemy. I own it. I featured it. I played that first tournament and got that T-shirt and wore that for my senior year of high school quite a bit. I'm tempted to find more stuff for it, just so I can show it to people. It's like, yeah, this was the card game I enjoyed the most growing up. Hacker Deluxe Edition, inspired by Steve Jackson games and their run-ins with Secret Service because they were doing a cyberpunk expansion for GURPS, and they thought, oh no, this is going to teach people how to actually hack computers. We need, yeah, that's the most legendary, one of the more legendary cases of overreacting, alongside certain video games. Anyway, Haku Ona. I don't think I got to feature this one. It's a game of exploring this haunted house, and someone was playing as the Hakona and was hiding her somewhere. And if someone stumbled across her, they died. But they also needed to find certain things. And there's like a number of ways to defeat her. But if any player got defeated, they were on her side now. The very creepy game over art on the inside of the box if someone actually lost. Which is kind of fitting considering, women in the box. But and it had a weird stealth system, although it had an alternative as well. Halo Action Clicks. If you've played Mage Knight, well, let's just get right to it. Mage Knight was a game of you have your figures and they have dials and they take damage and the dials twist and their stats go down. Very rarely they might go up right before they die. Or there's the Chaos Mage whose stats were just random as fuck. But it was an interesting concept that they pushed as far as they could and then expanded outwards with, MechWarrior Dark Age and Hero Clicks. But Halo Action Clicks was one of them that I really liked. Because I played trying to think, it's 2007. I've played at least the first Halo by then. It's entirely possible that I got the second one because I had gotten an Xbox just for the sake of playing Halo 2. Because I missed out on it. And playing Halo on the original hardware. And then playing Doom 3, and then the game, it was just having too many issues that I couldn't keep playing it. But yeah, Halo Action Clicks. Fun as hell. But alas, I don't know anymore. Heart of Crown, I featured Dominion-like. And Anime Girls, yay. Hecatomb. I still have one card for this depressing-ass game. You thought Gloom was depressing. Hecatomb's a game about destroying the world by reaping souls through stitching together minions into abominations and using relics and evil gods and other actions to support it. But yeah, I still have the Yogg-Sothoth card, and it's pinned to my wall in a way that's not damaging it, so I still have that. But yeah, it was just grimdark as hell. Um, it's it's a game that could be done as a digital implementation because there's still the Sangreal City card list that could entirely be done for the game. But yeah, if anyone's working on a digital implementation of Hecatomb, let me know. I want to see it. I'll play it. Hexagony is a weird game. I barely remember it though. It was hex grid, tokens, dice roll. Yeah, I don't remember much about it. Hexmonia. I never got to play with anyone. I don't have it anymore. But it's like Greek city states and playing these tiles to build it. Build your state bigger and do other stuff. It's alright. History of the World. I never played the copy that I owned, but I got to play someone else's older version of the game. Where you've got these different epochs, and you play as a different civilization, and it rises up, and then other civilizations start knocking it down, and you get your points. And it's possible for your weaker civilizations to still score some stuff anyway. Just by holding on to the territory long enough. The newer version uses these more generic pieces instead of epic appropriate figures. It's alright. But it's History of the World, Britannia, and Vinci are like the core three of the rise and fall foundation that would lead to Small World. Anyway, Horizon Zero Dawn. I featured it. I've done for the Watch Me Play It Solo. There's still people checking out the Watch Me Play It Solo for it. I had all this crap. And I don't have it anymore. It's an interesting game. I look at my bedroom, it's like, I need to be smarter with my space. Hyperborea. I've owned it twice. The first time I just completely swap out the color cubes, because there's a used copy, and it was missing two of them. Two of the orange cubes. Like, crap. Okay, I'm gonna have to swap out the whole thing. And thankfully, I found them online. I found plastic cubes. I still have a bunch of those left. And, yeah. The one that I got first had promo stuff. The second one, which I featured before selling off, is missing them. But it adds, like, these islands that you have to fly to reach. And that's some more development cards. Ikusa is a game I am tempted to find again somewhere. I miss having a samurai board game of some kind. Ikusa was good for the pieces and that approach. Samurai was good for the random events. And yeah. And Shogun was good for the secret planning. It's funny because Ikusa used to be called Shogun, and then it got renamed to Samurai Swords. And then it got renamed to Ikusa when I got the later 2000s printing. But yeah, Ikusa will secretly bid and to go first, to build stuff, to hire the ninja, to buy new troops, to build castles. Yeah. Illuminati random card game of conspiracies and trying to control groups, which can then control other groups and get you money. The further away the group is from the center of your conspiracy, the harder it's going to be to defend it. And then you're trying to control enough groups or hit your secret objective. It's special to win the game. It has been it's been around for a long time. Hold on for a minute. Oy. Alrighty. We're about halfway through. Import Export, I featured it, I think. Random card game of shipping, developing, and having money. It's alright. If it's still there at Entertainment, if I go back up to the Springs anytime soon, I might just get it back. Just because. Infamy, I have it. I love it. And I need more cyberpunk goodness. But Infamy is really freaking good. Ingenious. Used to own it. I used to have Travel Edition. You play a tile, you get points. Your opponent could then play a tile and possibly get more points based on that. But then you can play another tile off of that and get even more points. And you're trying to build evenly for points because your lowest points value is your final score. Although if you manage to get all the way to 18 points for all 6 colors, you win instantly. So, Isaribi. There were 2 editions. Apparently. I used to have an edition where the cards were... the reference cards were double-sided and had the Japanese on the back, I think. There's something weird between these 2 editions. But I have one. And the other one was like different in some way. I'm trying to remember what they did differently. Jaipur, I've featured it. I don't have it anymore. I do give it a good recommendation, though. It's a 2-player game. And a new player game. Hunter. I don't think I featured it. I owned it briefly. We used to play the older edition, but you're trying to have the most money stored in your Swiss bank account at the end from aid funds. And you could be in charge, you could be El Presidente, and hand out the funds to other leaders, but they could work together and stab you in the back. And then one of them would be the new leader. And then the cycle would continue. And there were fights on the boards and assassination attempts. It was a bonkers-ass game. Keyforge. Brilliant game with other issues. In terms of the algorithm for deck building collapsing. I don't know what happened. It's... because the deck you get is the deck you play with. And if you don't like the deck you play with, you buy a whole new deck. Add that to your collection. And trade decks between players. But then they just had to introduce in the first fucking set the 4 Horsemen. And make it known that, if you open this deck, this is what you're getting on the outside. And sealed 4 Horsemen decks were like just dominating the second market. Yeah. There would be future sets and they change out the available factions, available card pool. But I never got into this. But it was such an interesting game. I'm curious to see how well of a comeback it can make. Cat the laser game. You have a little laser beam on your lower right corner of your side that you fire out after moving a piece. Pieces have mirrors on them to redirect the lasers. There are pieces that have 2 mirrors at an angle, so regardless of what it's coming from, it's going to reflect. Some pieces would have, parts that would absorb the light, which means they're removed when the laser hits them. It's entirely possible to screw yourself over by total accident, just because you moved a piece that you really shouldn't have. And there are zones to keep the certain colored pieces in a certain spot. Like in your laser lane, you could only put your own piece. But it's basically laser chess. There are expansions that would have been interesting to check out, like this kind of prism-like thing that splits the laser in two. Yeah. Anyway, King Chocolate, a game of you could take control of certain parts of the process of producing the chocolate, and people might have to rely on you for that process. You could only control 4 of the 6, but the more circles you have, the more pieces you can get there at once, and then process those to the next step. The more money you can make. It was an interesting challenge of a game. Kingdom Builder. Draw a card, place your pieces there, and hope for the best. There's like different terrain every game, different special effects, different victory conditions. One I'm tempted to find again one of these days. But the base game is already expensive enough as is. Adding expansions to make the game even more horribly expensive can be a bit rough. Okay. Choreo, a random card game. Barely remember it. I think I bought it out of curiosity. Yeah, I don't remember much about it. But it was a card game. And apparently Korean themed. I guess that was interesting. Labyrinth, classic game of tilt a table and get a marble to the goal. That one's just plain tough. I'd be amazed to see how many people have actually, done it legitimately. Yeah, that one's tricky. Last Call the Bartender game is one I'm almost want to go looking for again. There's various drinks on various characters, and you're trying to move them around so that one person has the right kinds of drinks to mix what they're trying to create. But if they have too many other ingredients, then they get these ice cubes to water it down. It's a weird little game, and it's kind of, why the hell did I pick it up when I don't even drink alcohol? I just thought it was an interesting idea. But yeah, I hardly ever see that one anymore. Last Night on Earth zombie game. I don't think I messed with it all that much. I try to remember exactly what that entailed. Because I think you had your characters and there's like scenarios and all that. I don't know, I don't remember it well enough though. I don't think. Legend of the Five Rings. Actually, let's go ahead and hybrid edition, I guess. There you go. Because that's where I have the demo decks from. I currently own the demo decks for Spider and Unicorn. Yeah, because I did that episode. Solid game. I just want to. I I've seen a set of the 9 decks that I could get if I have the money, and if I'm fast enough to get it before it sells. But it's. I would want to find more people who still have the old stuff for this game, and maybe get into that again. The level 7 series is entirely, linked together by these aliens called the Gin, which are nearly died out, but they're resorting to clones and hybrids to keep their kind around, working with the local military to get people to experiment on and stuff. And each of these games is part of the story. Escape, their test subjects trying to get out. Lockdown is what happens when you don't get out, and it follows that storyline. Omega Protocol, where a team is sent in to take on whatever challenge the Overlord player is putting them up against. Which, considering Doom was out of print, and Space Hulk was not really getting messed with all that much. It was fulfilling a much needed sci-fi dungeon crawler fix, which is probably why it's that freaking high anyway. But aside from some issues with the pieces having warped bases and such, it was a good game. And then there was the Invasion, the cooperative fight against the Gin's enemies, the Hydra. The Hydra, the more you fight them, the harder they fight back. Every 12 of them that get wiped out, they draw an adaptation card, and it gets tougher to deal with them. It had an interesting approach to combat as well. It just comes down to a single die. You lose your figure, or they lose theirs, or both lose one, depending on a certain power stat and then numbers. And then there were events to affect, terror and mess with your production and stuff. And you're trying to complete this project to completely stop the Hydra. Yeah, that one is not one I recommend playing solo, because I've tried on several occasions and the game drives me nuts playing it solo. But it's more satisfying for me to play this one solo than Escape. But that's just me. Light and Dark, I owned it very briefly as part of a board game league door prize thing. I barely remember it because I didn't really mess with it all that much. The Lord of the Rings card game. No, wait. Lord of the Rings, and then there's Lord of the Rings card game. Completely different. Lord of the Rings adventure with the hobbits, and you have hand cards. Every turn, you're trying to make progress on these tracks to get through the next part of the story, or get ring or heart or light tokens, do other stuff. But then every turn there's an event, and it might end the part of the story sooner than you'd like, and possibly cripple your team. The ring could be used to make progress as well, but it was kind of risky. At the final stage of the game, if you don't get through it in time, the game ends badly. with the four words that pretty much make that end feel as final as possible. The ring is mine. Yeah. There's also the card game, which used a lot of, which was primarily footage from the movies, including some deleted stuff. Um, it was interesting because you could play cards for your hero side, but then your opponent's bad guy side gets to spend those to place enemies against you when you move. And then, depending on what area you were going to, it would add more. Your ring bearer could then use the ring as well, for special effects. But if they took too much corruption, the game ended. Or if they took wounds, they died. The one person who was into it, I like to describe it as two completely different movies playing at the same time, and you're trying to have yours end sooner with a happier ending. Yeah. Lords of Vegas is one I'm looking for again. There's some dice rolling and stuff. You've got every turn you get like a lot, just this parking lot, and it'll pay you money every turn. Or you can invest money and then develop that into more casino space. Then it's possible for those spaces to pay off depending on the card draw during the turn. But there are 5 casino types for 5 brands of casinos, and only 75% of the cards would be drawn. There's also the whole strip gets paid, that everyone who's on the strip will get paid for their casinos. But getting onto the strip in the first place is expensive. You could gamble for money as well against other players. You could completely reconfigure your casino to be of a different brand. It's a very random game, but it's also had some strategy to it that's like really, really tricky. And I kind of miss it, and I wish I could find it again. I remember reading about, apparently they were like working on some titles for the game at first, and one of the people making a suggestion was not familiar with American culture, a certain part of American culture, and they suggested combining gambling and casino to call the game Gambino. They got a lesson in American culture that day. After that, but yeah, it's I would like to find it again. I think they're trying to bring it back through like Kickstarter or whatever. Lords of Waterdeep. I own it. I featured it. It's the one worker placement game I'm willing to tolerate most of the time. Lost World Jurassic Park game was another little brother in the Big Brother program game of trying to get people to the helicopter before Velociraptors took them down, or the T-Rex got to the headquarters and chomped everyone. It's a silly game. But hey, the dinosaur miniatures were pretty cool. Love Letter, I've owned it. I've never gotten to play it though. Card game of randomness. Just trying to get points. Just have the high value every turn and get a point towards winning the whole thing. Mule, the board game. I want to play the video game. I'll find it somewhere that's actually stable to play it on. It's fine, but there's already a better version, and it's called Planet Steam, sadly. But it's always fun to see tabletop adaptations of video games anyway. So it was worth checking out. Machi Koro. This is a game that I learned about in Port Angeles. You have your city, you roll dice, you set off your buildings, you may set off some of your opponent's buildings. You get money, do other things. It's a nice intro game. There's another game that uses a similar system called Space Base. And what I like about that one over Machikoro is you start with a card for every result at the start of the game, from 1 to 12. But Machikoro seems a little bit nicer in terms of aesthetic. Magdar, I don't know anymore. You have dwarves. You're trying to go to certain spaces in this lava river, these rocks, and you're trying to mine either mithril or gems. The closer you are to the demon, the greater the risk you are at losing what you're working for. But the higher the value, you could potentially make something. You could claim jump, you could taunt the demon, you could protect yourself against them. But at the end, every gem you have that you also have at least one mithril for is worth points. And the most points wins. Yeah, it's a silly random game. Mage Knight, the classic. I mentioned it with HaloClix. The whole aesthetic between the factions was pretty cool. The one major issue with the game was with the boosters. If there was a big Hulk figure in there, you could feel it. But there wasn't a guarantee that it was the kind of big hulking figure that you'd actually want. But if the Storm Golem or Troll Chieftain was in there, you knew it. There were other unique figures that weren't so big. But it was my gateway to miniatures games, and that's what matters. There's the spin-off Dungeons, which is like fun as hell, and I remember someone trying to do a campaign out of it. And that's the one I want to find again. Maybe. Magic the Gathering. It's everyone's probably seen the game by now. You have your deck, you got your lands, play them one turn at a time. Use them for mana, for creatures and spells and artifacts. And try to bring down your opponent's life, or run their deck out, or achieve some other victory condition. Like Battle of Wits. I'm not going to come back to the game anytime soon. The one format that I did enjoy for the game was called Cube Draft. There was somebody who had a metric fuck ton of magic cards. And we just make booster packs out of those and we draft those. It'd be fun Friday night thing. Arena of the Planeswalkers was an odd approach, and I'm almost wish I'd held on to it a little bit longer. But you have your Planeswalker and summon creatures and use cards and duel your opponents. It was kind of like Heroescape? Something like that. To that end. Magnifico! I don't know anymore. There's the digital implementation, apparently. Basically, war game with Leonardo da Vinci's inventions and artwork as things you can acquire to enhance your military capabilities and just general income and other stuff. It's fine. It's really silly. It comes from the same line as Dust, which says a lot. It is possible to capture other people's gliders and tanks. And if you were able to use them as well, then you could use them. That bad habit of crashing or blowing up. Anyway, Mahjong, I have a set for it. I had to get two sets to, um, because my one set didn't have the. It was missing a tile and it had an extra of a tile that I didn't need. That I already had, four of. I got two sets of that, and I've kept the tile racks out of one set, and like took the best quality tiles from each set to make it the one set that I need. I took out all the flowers and seasons and jokers because that's just. I have yet to actually feature it on my channel though because I the only thing I really understand about the game is on your turn you draw a tile. If you have a complete hand, you reveal and you win. If not, you discard a tile. There's an opportunity for somebody to take that tile. Otherwise, the next player goes. And there's only so many winning hands you can make. And it's like, okay. I prefer the more kind of open approach that like the card game Rummy kind of has. I could see playing that Mahjong with the Rummy style of just whatever. Apparently, it can only really have the dragons and the winning hand based on certain other tiles that you need to have as well. There's also another version, a more Americanized version called Rummikub, which I still see that one popping around for cheap. Mansions of Madness used to have it. I featured it. People keep watching that short, man. Wow. They want that game. I think that was the one game that when I was selling stuff down Entertainment, that's what got me the big bucks. It was this one. There's a second edition, but app-driven shit. No, thank you. Mech Warrior Dark Age, I had talked about with Halo Action Clicks. Your mechs also have this heat dial as well that would affect their moving and their shooting and such. So you had to manage that as well. This is the game that is partly responsible for the trope known as Dork Age, because some people just weren't too enthusiastic about it. Yeah, but I still have some fondness for it. Megacore, I own it. There was another copy floating around at the auction that used to be mine. So there's now 2 copies of Megacorps in our play group, which is funny as hell. Merchants and Marauders, Pirates, yar. Or you could just, take the safer route and pick up goods and deliver them to places that need them. That's one I kind of miss. But it's fun. This was their solo rules for it. Medieval, if you ever played a game called Zombies, it's basically that with skeletons. More fantasy setting. MIL, I have featured it. I no longer have it. Feudalism and such. Milborn, I don't think I used to own it. I've seen it on numerous occasions in different versions. Just racing cars. It's random card game. Yeah. Mine Trap. I used to own it. It was something I had as a kid too. I'd go through and read through the questions huh? Okay, I'm gonna try to figure this out. And I'd check the answer and it's really? That's part of what messed with my head early in my life. was having a copy of that game and going through all that shit. Minecraft builders and biomes and the farmers market expansion I used to have. I wish I could have featured it for this channel. It's a game of gathering resources, exploring the world, building stuff, fighting monsters with. I like the combat system. You could go to the edge of the playing area to collect items to add to your stack. Your starting stack was a wooden sword and a stone sword and 3 poison potatoes. And your best outcome out of that starting stack was anywhere from 1 to 2 damage if you're lucky. Or 3 if you're pretty lucky. It was a 1 in 10 chance to draw 3 poison potatoes and like not do so well in that fight. But you could go get other items to either do more damage or give you auxiliary actions, like gathering extra stones or extra materials. But you're trying to build your structures on this grid, and depending on what stage of the game it's on, you score based on terrain, element of the structure, or structure type being adjacent to each other, forming this cluster. It's a good game, and that's probably part of what opened me up to getting into Minecraft alongside watching VTubers. The farmers market adds some extra stuff too, which is like nice. But apparently there's like 2 other Minecraft board games that are more cooperative. But this one's pretty good. Monopoly, I used to own it. I hate it. Played a 3-player game with family, my mom and an extended family member. I think it was my mom's cousin. And he just turned into a violent psycho over the fucking game. It's like, really, dude? Yeah, I don't know whatever happened to him after that. But you don't go into someone's house and then play a game and then turn into an asshole over it. It's just not worth it. Monsters Against America. You have giant monsters to go stomping around and crush cities and get points. And then each player also controls part of the military to help fight back against the monsters. And there's like certain heroes that can be summoned as well to fight back against the monsters. But you're trying to win against the monsters by stomping cities. Fun times. Mousetrap. You're trying to build this mousetrap over the course of the game. And be the one to set it off against your opponents. It's silly. I think it's more fun to just set it up and set up the trap completely and then set it off for fun a couple times. It's silly. Multi-universum. You are trying to close these portals by gathering the right cards that you need and getting to a certain location to shut the gate. Each card had, the element that could help close the gate, and a different action depending on what gate you are at. Not a gate or some kind of charger or something. There was a term for it. I'm trying to remember. But by collecting certain types of portals, you get points, bonus points. Yeah, it was competitive, but it's an okay card game. Munchkin, random card game of randomness, and just silly. Munchkin Quest an actual dungeon setup as well. It's at the time it was kind of a novelty of it's a silly game to make fun of dungeon crawling silliness. And it was fun, but then they sequeled the hell out of it and spun it off into a ton of different versions and uh, there there are other games I could play instead. If I wanted the adventuring randomness, but I want it to feel more like it adds up to something, there's my Anima card games. But hey, the art was kind of fun. Mwahaha! You get to be an evil genius and build your doomsday device and threaten the world. I think I featured it. Yeah. I didn't have it when we started doing the shorts, though. The only thing. Nubia Drop. Collectible shogi-like game. It's a game that could be entirely be reskinned with Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters and characters, and that might give it another shot at life that way. But as it was an interesting game. It just didn't really catch on. Ooh, excuse me. Yeah, the naming conventions did not help. Yeah, it's kind of hard to keep stuff together. Necromunda, you have your little squad of people fighting in this underhive. I know they brought it back. I'm tempted and I'm curious. Hiroshima Hex. I currently have the base game and some expansions. I was surprised that these two came with dual. So I'll have to kind of figure them out, see how balanced they are, and maybe play with some other players. I need to bring this in on a Tuesday. I am extremely tempted to bring it in tomorrow. So that's what I might just do. New Angeles, Houston, I featured it. I'd like to see if anyone's come up with any more scenarios for that one. Nexus Ops. I missed out on my chance to get the redo. They brought it back, and then I missed my opportunity to get it. I just wasn't in a good financial place. But you have your company, and you can hire various units of various strength. And you've got your actions, and you've got your secret objectives. And you're fighting your opponents. Trying to make your way to the monolith and control that point, because that gives you more stuff to work with. It's a good intro game to anyone who's new to the idea of building up building up forces and fighting opponents in a war game. The Night Cage, I no longer have. It's okay. If I had it, I'd probably watch me play it solo for that one. I might keep my eyes out for another copy at some point, but I'm just not feeling it right now. I still respect the way it looks, though. It's an aesthetic that I wish I could see more of. Ninganust. I swear this is the most obscure board game I have ever owned. If in looking over this list you think no that one's even more obscure, I assure you, by all means let me know. So you have these tiles that are magnetic for building the kind of dungeon or tower location. You have your figures that are metal. You have your opponent's figure, Your opponent has enemy figures that are also metal, and then you're just exploring and then fighting. You have very specialized dice. It's not enough to say, "Oh, roll a d6 and add this." It's an actual d6 with that range of numbers on it. It's nuts. And it came with paints, and it came in this wooden case with a metal handle and the metal latch. It's it was an interesting thing to look at, but I never really got to play it. Ninja Legend of the Scorpion Clan, where you get to play as either the ninja, or the samurai bodyguards, and you have this hidden movement thing. But it is also possible that if you move too quickly and they manage to stumble upon where they could see see the ninja was some deep shit. And the ninja's trying to achieve their goal to get out in time. The bodyguards are trying to find the ninja and shut them down. It's possible to have two people playing their own ninja, and then two players playing different divisions of the samurai. It was an interesting approach, but I never really got to mess with it. Number 9 is a simple, quick game of stacking these number-shaped tiles together to build a foundation, and then on top of each other to get actual points. It's nice. I recommend it. Noria, I featured it, the little disc of actions and other stuff. Oceanos was a game I got from the Board Game League of upgrading your submarine and exploring deep, and try not to run into too much trouble. It's alright. Ogre. I had that one, and I got some expansion stuff for it. A game of either playing as a military force or playing as the big damn tank. And the ogre is trying to destroy the command base and get out. The military force is trying to stop it, and they are weak, but they are many. It's a classic game, 1977. And then there's Ogre Objective 218, which is based on the Battlefield 218. I believe I featured it already. Yeah, for a quicker card game version. The Omega Virus. I had it very briefly because I got it from a board game auction up at a convention in Denver. But I never really got to mess with it because I didn't want to get batteries. Because I was cheap. You're trying to find the pieces and then find the virus and then shut them down. Yeah. And the players could mess with each other too, but there was a time limit that was shutting down various sectors and forcing players closer together. It was interesting that it had that electronic thing for it. Once Upon a Time, storytelling card game. I had a bunch of expansions for it too. I just didn't bother to add them to the list. I never got to play it either. Apparently, it's possible, as people have pointed out, it's possible for one person to just completely dominate the whole thing, which doesn't seem very fun. I think if it went more like, just kind of going around or something. I don't know. It was interesting approach to expanding my imagination, at least. I had a blank set, a make your own set for this game as well, that I half started. I didn't do any of the story endings for it, but yeah, it was kind of dark what I was trying to create. It's funny though. I had to make a list of okay, what all cards have been featured so far. I have to make something that's not been done already. One Night Revolution. I had some expansions for it. I picked it up because I was curious about the whole system. Okay, everyone's heads down, and now I'm gonna raise it up, put your hand back down, and then I'm gonna secretly vote on who's going on this mission. I never got to play it, but it was an interesting concept to look over and see how people figure things out. It's one of those things I need to be better at talking to people with as well. The Oregon Trail game, during the Willamette Valley. Apparently, it's one of the better games inspired by the Oregon Trail, but it's still got some issues. I want to see like a good Oregon Trail game that's not memey. It's not hooked on the memes. It's actually a solid game. Yeah. Next page. Come on. Load, damn it. Alright. And scroll all the way back up to the top. Okay. And pause. Alrighty. Othello. Classic two-player game of place a disc, flip over everything else along the way. I think it's solved, maybe. It might be one to come back to sometimes, but otherwise I don't really need to mess with it. Pandemic. I had the older version of Pandemic. I also had On the Brink as well. But now I've got the newer version. The newer version does look a little bit nicer, I think. Definitely. Classic game of cooperation and saving the world. Contagion. A cooperative game. Not cooperative. Not cooperative, it's competitive game of using your disease to infect the world. Basically expanding on the whole On the Brink. Having the terrorists spreading their disease around. It's kind of messed up, but it is a good game. Pandemic the Cure. So it's Pandemic, but now lots of dice. Your character actions are dice. Infection cubes are dice. It's a more of a travel-friendly design. But I don't have that one anymore either. I think I had that one when I moved to Port Angeles, though. Yeah. Payday, classic game of roll and move and get money and spend money. I saw an older version of the game with different mechanics, but the one I had was more in like the 90s. That version. It's silly, but it's fun. Pente, classic game of 5 in a row or capture 5 sets of 2 from your opponents. I kind of like the design of it, but it just makes me want to play Go that much more instead. Perfection had it was really little. Like we still lived in the apartment before the trailer park. Little, just frantic, get the pieces in before it pops. See how fast you can do it each time. Perplexus Epic, a game of it's Labyrinth, but it's inside a ball, and you can turn the ball all sorts of ways to get the little marble inside towards the next goal. Epic had a particular shortcut that if you pulled it off, basically got you to the goal from like halfway. I don't know if they ever did like secondary versions of the game to fix that. But it's kind of funny realizing, oh, you can shortcut to the end from here. But it's just kind of awesome the way they have it in the ball in the first place. Pinochle, I still have a deck for it. I last played with me, my mom, my grandpa, and my grandma at my grandparents' old house. The last house they got to live in before my grandfather passed away. It was a nice house too, but I guess something's going on. But yeah, me and Grandpa won. But yeah, it's a game of playing cards to as a to take tricks and to get the points to meet what you bid to set the trump card in the first place. It can be a challenge. Pirates of the Spanish Main, a game of collecting these little cardboard ships, putting them together, and then playing them on this tabletop. That's the boat game that I miss, man. It's the boat game that I miss so much. I think there are other expansions that have stuff like the Kraken and other sea creatures. But I want to say this was also by WizKids, I think. I'm going to double check. I'm going to put this into a new tab. Pirates. James Ernest. Yeah, WizKids. Fun fact. James Ernest is part of Cheap Ass Games, which has a lot of history. But yeah, it's got a lot of versions, and it's a lot of fun. Have fun finding stuff for that one. Pit, classic game of trading, and the bell. It's not Pit without the bell. This is a game I would love to play, but I've only owned a copy of the game once, and it's definitely a party game. It's hard to get those kinds of games going at the game store, unless it's certain players are there, a certain group. Planet Steam. I'm sorry to kick the Mule board game down, but Planet Steam basically does it better. You have your Steam tanks and such. I used to own a copy of this game. I'm pretty sure I featured it too. But yeah, Planet Steam is just such a brutal game, but I love it. Point Blank, I used to own. It's a two-player game. If you've seen the Tron Light Cycles thing, it's kind of like that. You're trying to cut your opponent off. If you can't place your piece so that you can, move it to the open, it's part of your next move. Then you crash and your opponent wins. And the board wraps around, but you have to hit it from direct. You can't do it at an angle. Pokemon Master Trainer. Yeah, because we had just moved to Pueblo and Toys R Us was still open. And I'd really gotten into the anime, but I never got to play the games by that time. It was just move around, capture Pokemon, get cards, roll dice kind of game. It was alright. The trading card game. The Pokemon trading card game is still a solid concept of a game. You play your Pokemon, you can evolve them in the following turns. You attach energy to give them the capabilities to fight or do their other stuff. Use your trainer cards to help. And when you knock out an opponent's Pokemon, you get a prize card. and that's positive reinforcement, which is the opposite of what they did for they eventually do for Duel Masters. I'd like to see that approach, the Duel Masters approach of if you knock out an opponent's Pokemon, they get a prize to better help themselves, and if they withdraw their last prize, then you win. But I've we really need to get the point across to kids. Stealing is bad. Please don't steal cards from other people. That's just mean. You know, I've had too many stolen. It's not fun. Poker dice. I still have a set lying around. It's simple. Poker tiles game. It's I used to have it. Basically, building hands of cards in a Scrabble kind of setup. It's okay. Portal, the uncooperative cake acquisition game. This could have been just an entirely meme thing like some of the Oregon Trail games were, but it is actually a pretty solid game design. As my comment says, it's basically a more amusing approach to Magdar, but you have your test subjects and you're trying to have the most in a chamber when it gets processed, which will then get you more subjects, cards, or cake slices. And you're trying to keep your cake slices on the freaking board and not throwing down the incinerator. And when one person's test subjects are completely removed, the game ends, and whoever has the most cake there wins. I got it, and it came with a card with a code for Portal 2, and that's how I played that one. But yeah, it's an interesting game. It's fun. Power Grid with all sorts of expansions. Concordia falls in that same pattern of base game and tons of expansions. But yeah, you have your you buy plants in an auction, you buy resources on a market, you pay to get into cities to power those, and as the game continues, the next higher price within the city is available to build on, and the resources renewal changes, and you're just trying to power enough stuff to win the game. You have to build the connections and then be able to meet the demands of those cities to win. It's still a good game even now. Factory Manager is a completely different game, but it has some more. It still has the approach of if you're in last, you have an advantage for like buying stuff. And trying to expand your factory for productivity and efficiency, and just trying to win the game through that. Project L is a competitive puzzle game of sorts using these little pieces. The little I like to refer to the first two levels of pieces as corn and green beans. But it's a fun little game and real brain burning at times. Proteus. If you have blank dice, you can probably remake it yourself. But I like the carved versions. It's a chess variant. You move one piece, you rotate another to its next value aside, or you rotate it back to make it less valuable for your opponent to capture. It is a tough game. Chess is already hard enough as is. Proteus goes even tougher. Puerto Rico, classic mechanics, Contentious theme. Yeah, there's been some, recent efforts in trying to make a more inclusive historical approach to the game. But I still see, this older version played quite a bit. It's just a classic game of roll, follow. You take a roll card, everyone else follows, but they don't get the advantage that you do. And you've got plantations for growing crops, quarries to make buildings cheaper. Buildings did actually do stuff with their occupied. It's a game design worth studying if you're going to get into game design yourself. Pyramid Arcade, which is basically a collection of the various pyramid games from Looney Labs. I think I messed with the color wheel one. This is a solo game. Yeah, if you just want a big collection of games to mess with, that's one to look for. Cubert I got from a thrift store in my younger days. And it was missing the D8. It was missing the D8 and the D6 that were needed for the game. But that was the first time I ever owned a board game based on a video game. Apparently they did a whole bunch of those kinds of games back then. Warriors, I no longer own the copy. But it's still a good game. I've featured it before. Quinto, it's a Scrabble with numbers, and you're trying to set them up so that they add up to a multiple of 5. And you can build off of others as long as it doesn't extend to a set greater than 5 tiles. You're fine. But it's kind of a tricky game in that sense. It's another 3M bookshelf one, like I have with Acquire, and I used to have with Feudal and Executive Decision. Corridor. 2 players. You're either moving your piece or you're adding a wall to the maze. You cannot completely isolate someone from getting to the other side. Yeah. It's all right. Quirkle, tiles in a row or a column, another crossword kind of thing. It's a decent game for younger players, or just for a quick fun thing. Rebound. Is that the one with like the marble centered discs and just trying to bounce it off? Trying to ricochet it over to the little scoring thing. It's like shuffleboard, I think. Yeah. Revolution, Anarchy, The Palace. I have them. You've seen them. I really need to see how Anarchy plays though. Rex Final Days in Empire. If you played Dune, it's not too far off. This is kind of the way to bring back Dune until they actually reprinted it. But this one's set more in the Twilight Imperium stuff. Risk is a classic. My mom had a copy. That's what got me interested in that game. I played against the computer version and got my ass kicked. I've also played Risk 2210 and Risk Godstorm. I want to find Risk Godstorm because I like that kind of mythology type stuff. Robo Rally, the Avalon Hill edition, I had that. A silly game of programming robots and trying to get through this death course of a factory and shoot lasers at your opponents and damage them so they have less cards to work with, or their programming gets stuck in a limited number of lives before you were completely removed from the race. Yeah. They brought it back. I think Renegade Games brought. Yeah. Yeah. Renegade Games brought it back. Rock Band Manager, I featured it. It's silly. It's okay. Roots, I never did a proper Pillar Loves Tabletop Games episode for Root. I did Player Nexus. And I don't think I really got too deep into the strategies like I should have. The first time I had Root, I had a bunch of expansions for it. But then I didn't really bother for the second one, other than Clockwork and Exiles and Partisans. It's I respect the game design, but it's just the asymmetry might be a little bit hard to solve sometimes. Rory's Story Cubes. I'm surprised this is actually an entry. I thought it was an interesting idea and just used it to kind of spark my imagination. Roll the dice and interpret and just make a story out of it. But it always killed me that if you got one result on a die, it means there's no possibility to get the other results on that die. Which is why I bought 3 sets of them. Which was probably dumb, but it just what I was feeling at the time. Hey, there's Rumus, which got retooled into Blockers 3D. The Rumus pieces look nice, though. I'll give it that. First edition Runebound with the D20 and the cardboard standees and the terrain dice that were actually carved in. The engraved ones that I miss. Runebound 3rd edition, which revamped the whole combat system and other skill checks. I was like, really? No thanks. And then Runebound 2nd edition, which I currently have, and I have expanded the ever-living crap out of. Yeah, good stuff. Ruby Combat Ready I still stand by this opinion. Ruby Combat Ready's system is what they should have done for a Sword Art Online tabletop game. You will see later down the list when we get to it. But you have your character, they have their semblance token, they can flip over when they're using it once per round, I think. And then you're trying to play the higher initiative and then do enough damage to make a difference. If you can't beat them on initiative, you need to be at least good enough in health to withstand. And then everyone else who's not like the main character for this particular round can do some support stuff like help with a side quest or deal with a sub boss or something. And then in between let's say in between rounds or something, in between parts of a campaign, you could spend your experience to improve your deck with cards that have better initiative, better damage. Is an interesting approach, and I respect it for that at least. Soccer Arms. I had my old version. I have the newer versions now, and I just want to fucking play this game. Come on, find a day, bring in my combined collection of all 3 sets in one box, and just make a day out of it. I'm debating on putting in a request off for my birthday next year. Actually, my birthday is going to fall on a Tuesday anyways, which is going to be Board Game League, and Board Game League is, fully competitive with a single winner. And it's going to be hard to do that in a reasonable amount of time, I think. And then I have to explain the game. I just want to find a day to run this game because I fucking love it, man. Samurai Game of Politics and Warfare in Feudal Japan. I would want to house, if I ever got it again, I'd have to house rule it that if someone gets eliminated early on, they can come back in a reduced capacity, but still have a chance to kind of crawl their way back, or something. There is way too easy for an event to just wipe someone the fuck out. Then again, it's also possible to just strike at someone's um, home and wipe them out that way. But I need a good samurai board game again. That's the other option. This, Ikusa, and Shogun. We'll get to Shogun in a minute. Sanctum. Did I feature it? You have your character, you have their experience that they get from fighting demons to unlock various new capabilities or improved stats. And you're just trying to be set up for the final fight. Scary Tales. I had the 2 sets just out of curiosity. I never really messed with it. There were cards and there were dice, I think. It's just dark. Scotland Yard. I had a copy that I got from a thrift store and it was missing the rules. I was like, how the fuck do you play this game? Apparently, it's a classic of secret movement and players working together to find the person they're trying to catch. I'm sure there's a new enough version somewhere. Scrabble, classic crossword game. I think my mom likes it. I like it. I just need to expand my freaking vocabulary to play better. Shadowhunters. I own it. I've featured it. I love it. Never getting rid of it. Shadowrun Duels. I believe I've talked about before. It's the... You have your action figure on a giant base with 3 dials. And you can have a certain number of points of equipment that are actually featured on your figure. This... Even if you don't like the game, the action figures are fucking nice. And it's not, back then, the price wasn't too bad. So, it's a good intro to just minis games as well. I wish to see more games like this, though. 1 figure is all you need to play for yourself. And you can have actual components added to that figure to show that they've got those capabilities. Sheriff of Nottingham, a bluffing game that I won at a board game final, and I immediately gave that away. Nobody wanted it at all at that entire table. It's okay. It's just bluffing games are hard to do on a consistent basis because there's what I call Joker face that I tend to suffer from. When I'm when I'm trying to be sneaky, I can't. Hey, let's play Battlestar Galactica. Oh, hey, guess who's the Cylon? It's that idiot with a big smile on his face looking at his loyalty card. Yeah. Shogi. I own it. It's the for new players set with the little... This is what your moves are written right on the tiles. I like to play that more often. Shogun is the other samurai board game I wish I'd have. It's like, I like the little planning and the tower, but at the same time, I liked the more specialized pieces of Ikusa and having a wide variety of random events with Samurai. But this is the game I would play more often, I think. Shuttles, 2-player maze mobile maze game. It's not bad. If you're looking for a little brain burner of a challenge for 2 players, it's pretty good. Sid Meier's Civilization, the board game with fame and fortune and wisdom of warfare. Wisdom and warfare. Yeah, I think I was talking about Civilization 3, and it's like, oh, I think that, there's, it's where the board game is taking its cues from. This particular board game is taking its cues from Civ 4. But yeah, there's this whole tech pyramid thing, and the culture track, and the card-based combat system. It's a decent game. I also had the first version of it that had, for China's leader, the leader that they do not approve of showing getting defeated, of course. Yeah, that one's probably selling for quite a bit more than the second editions. But yeah, after this, they went to Civilization on New Dawn, and it's like, it just lost something when it went to that version. But it is impressively high. People love it. Silverton, I think I featured it. Train game. I like that you don't have to worry about stocks. You just focus on the routes and all that. 6, simple 2-player game of getting 6 into a line, a triangle, or ring. All your opponents trying to do the same. Very simple. Small world. And then Small World of Warcraft is the one I almost wish I could get again. Because I like the approach that one took with a modular board and, World of Warcraft. Because that whole verse is interesting. Crash Course, I featured it. I don't have it anymore. It's currently with the library that is under renovations for their board game shelf. Sorry, classic game, draw a card, move a piece. Get home. Or knock your opponents around. Space Hulk. In 3rd edition and 4th edition. I might have to keep an eye open at another board game auction if someone actually does have a copy for sale for either of those. Because I want to have that. I want to have that with the actual pieces and stuff. And I want to actually play it with somebody. Because I keep getting these 2-player games and I just don't get to play with anybody. I want that to change next year. I really do. Space Hulk Death Angel, the card game, where you will have your set of 2 Terminators, one kind of basic and one specialized, and they'll be going through this. It's Space Hulk, but it's a card game basically, and there's a better chance of actually winning in that one. It's one I ended up playing solo quite a bit, but it's still hard. Splendor, which I've owned and I featured, and I've got cities, I've got the nobles tiles, and I've got the 3D printed gems, which are awesome. Squadron Strike. I don't know it anymore. It's a 3D space tactical sim. Apparently it's based off the engine used in Saganami Island Tactical Simulator, which I think is Honor Harrington universe. I think. But yeah, there's these bases to kind of show the ship at like various rolling positions, angles, and like holy crap. This game takes a lot to figure out. Uh, Star Realms. There's the gigantic section of Star Realms. It's a good game, but it's something I want to play with. That's better with multiple players. But you have your deck. You're buying cards from the market. You're using damage to attack your opponents. You're using your points to not die. Um, it's a good game. It is. But like I said, I think it's better with more players. Uh, if you remember what I was saying about Chrononauts, now imagine it with Star Trek. That's basically that. Star Trek Ascendancy. I got to play it once. You've got your command tokens to do your actions. You've got ships that you can put together into fleets for special reasons. Um, you can discover what's on these planets. Maybe nothing. Maybe another civilization, or maybe just dangerous shit. And then you have faction advantage and a faction disadvantage. But yeah, the base game was Starfleet, Romulans, Klingons. And then expansions were the Andorians, the Cardassians, Ferengi, Vulcan High Command. And there was a kind of cooperative challenge of the Borg. I think they've also added in, since then, the Dominion and the Breen. I think they're adding more too. There's one card in that game that was like, you're immune if you're playing as the Tholians. I've yet to see the Tholians for that one. But being able to set up the map in that game, just discovering where things are and setting up the warplanes and everything, it looked really impressive. It is pretty cool. Galactic Enterprises. You are bidding on cards, and then you are secretly pricing, you know, them to make money. If you're the only person who's in that market, you're going to be exploiting the ever living crap out of it. But if other players are in there, you're gonna have to undersell, or you're gonna have to agree to a price and stick to it. Because if someone undersells, then everyone else is gonna get screwed. So is it weird to call it a cartel simulator? I don't know. I might have to look that up a little bit more in depth. But anyway, Star Wars miniatures. I want to say it was a D20 game of moving miniatures around, making attacks, and doing other stuff. I was very briefly into it, and it was fun. The figures looked nice, I think. Star Wars Outer Rim. Okay, so this was the game we turned to when we were kind of sick of Firefly. It's like, oh, good, a Star Wars game of having your own ship and crew and flying around doing shit and getting money and fame. Cool. It's okay. I like the Firefly verse more, but I like the mechanics of Star Wars Outer Rim a lot better. Anyway, StarCraft the board game. I own it. I featured it. I am never selling my copy ever again. Because, damn. Starlight Stage needs to be ranked. Please. If you have Starlight Stage, please put in a rank. Put in your rating in BGG. Just it's I like the way it plays. And I like the art style, of course, but I just really like the way it plays in terms of You know, using the talents of your idols to get stuff, to improve your achievements, towards getting better idols, towards getting better fame cards. It's a nice game. Some people I know might take issue with the way it looks though. They're not interested in that anime stuff. But screw that. And the expansion, of course. Uh, Startropolis was an interesting concept. You have this 3D space station that people are contributing to that do various things if you own more. And then as you own more of those types, it helps. But some of the pieces don't really fit together too well. And there's having to pay attention to the alignment of, what pieces will fit together and what won't. It was an interesting game, I'll give it that. But still, that's the thing with having, those physical components that you need to put together as part of the game. You're going to run into that problem if they're not consistently cut. Steam Barons, Steam Apps expansion. I've featured Steam. I have yet to feature Barons because I haven't really read over it, and I have yet to feature the map expansion. Barons introduces this whole stock market thing. The map expansion adds in a map that's good for 7 players, and then a map that's good for 2 players, and a map that's good for 3. And the 7-player one is why I made that whole blue train set. But then I realized I'm going to need another disc set for the 7th player if we're going to use them with Steam Barons. So I have to get back to that project at some point. Stone Age is an interesting approach to a worker placement game because you can have multiple workers on one spot, but only a certain number of players can go to those spots for gathering stuff. But then you have to roll dice and hope you get enough to actually get what you need. But it is a good game for 4 players. I'll go with that. Just play a quick game in the evening. Stronghold, 2-player game of tower defense. It's like Castle Panic, but it's more of a chess game in that regard. And a lot of little pieces too for the enemies. But I never really got to mess with it all that much. Struggle for the Galactic Empire. It is a solo game. And I'm half tempted to go looking for it again just because I played it solo and feature it. But we'll see. Sun Tzu, a game for 2 players as well. Various regions with various points during each stage. And you have this card-based system of resolving combat. Kind of tricky when I was thinking about it. But I never got around to playing it with anyone. Supernova. A very interesting card-based combat system for a space conquest game. So it's from Valley Games, and there were a concerning number of copies of this game that had issues with improper storage, ending with mold. This and Titan were the 2. Yeah. It had a very weird approach to things. Also had like moons rotating around the planet. Various planets. And of course the supernovas that would periodically go off and eradicate nearby nearby stuff. And you'd have to bid for control of it. Okay, here's the point I was trying to bring up with regard to Ruby system for a sort of online game. This is a dice-based kind of push your luck system kind of game. I'm trying to hit certain combos and then chain with another player to keep the damage going. And, not die. It is alright. Tac, another two-player game of chess-like maneuvers and being able to stack tiles on top of each other. It's alright. Tales of the Arabian Nights. I got that after coming back from Port Angeles. I never got to play with anyone else, though. I ended up playing it solo because. But you'll have your character traits, and then you're going to be guessing. You're going to figure out what your combined. Was it Fate and Destiny or something? Story and Destiny points you're trying to achieve before you get back to the home, your starting place. And so it'll tell you like consult this table for your options for actions. And then you might have to roll this die that's either a plus, a minus, or a blank. That might affect the results. But the storybook it comes with is pretty friggin' huge. It was impressive. It's just a crazy fun game, I think. Talisman, roll around, go around the board. Roll dice, go around the board, do your character stuff. I didn't really get to mess with it a whole lot. But apparently it's been around for a long time. Someone out there loves it. Target I own. Terraforming Mars I own and have a lot of crap for. Tetris Link. You drop pieces down set up like Connect 4 and you're trying to get multiple pieces together to start scoring. And then you have a die to determine what piece you get. And you can play with 4 players, so that was interesting. Theophrastus, I barely remember. It is card-driven game with alchemy and shit. I don't remember it. Thunder's Edge, I featured it. I no longer have it. I should have done a better job with that episode. I'm sorry. It's... If they could do something to bring it back and make it good, I would be all for it. Honestly. Tide of Iron. 2-player World War II game from Fantasy Flight in a gigantic box. The big box Final Fantasy Flight games. Something to see. It had a lot of expansions too, but I just had the base game and I didn't really get to mess with it a whole lot. But the minis look nice. Tigris and Euphrates. I have it in my Fake It Until They Remake It series. I just want an actual copy again. I really do. Bring it back. And don't make it stupid ass expensive like Fantasy Flight. Damn it. Titan. You have your Titan. You roll dice to move around and gather monsters together. Other creatures. And then you can split off your groups. Keep your Titan a secret and protected as best you can. Try to build up their experience. And then if your group meets an opposing group, you get to move to this battle board and resolve a fight, which is part of what inspired one of my game designs. It was the other ones that sometimes had storage problems. The design itself has been around for quite a while, but it is this edition that I first got into it. It's definitely a spend a ton of hours rolling dice and doing crazy stuff kind of game. Tom Clancy's Politica. Uh, where do we start with that one? You have your faction. You have their presence in the board. You have your leader. Sorry, the phone's ringing. Yeah, you'll have income every turn towards getting dice to attack. You're trying to increase your influence. And achieve your goals and such. And your faction has its own special rules. It's this also had elements that I liked for one of my own game designs, in terms of having your ambassador or leader type figure being able to keep on moving even through your own stuff. The funny thing is, I could probably take a set of each of the color cubes that I've got in my collection to replace the confetti that the influence pieces were for that game. The only other house rule, the only other thing I came up with it was like a house rule. Instead of trying to remember that, hey, inflation is happening, you need to remember things are more expensive now, but you get more money. It's like you just lose. The house rule idea was just lose half your money, round it up. And then just keep on going. Oh, you could probably shuffle the inflation card back in and make things even more chaotic. Tomb, I barely remember. I want to say I got it. When did I get it? I got it from a game convention or visiting a store out of town or something. You have characters, you go into a dungeon, you fight stuff. I don't remember much else. Traditional card games, because, yeah. I'll probably just look up the rules for these sometime. Like good old solitaire. Trek in the National Park 2nd Edition. I got it cheap because of someone's demo copy, and it's like, okay, I don't really want this. Okay, I'll buy it. And you use these cards and move around and try to claim certain cards and get points. Trying to gather these gems of certain colors for a bonus at the end. It's alright. Trophy. I forgot to unmute. I'm a dumbass. Alright. The last one I covered, Tomb. It's the run around in a dungeon, get characters run around in a dungeon. Traditional card games, because I have cards for them. Trek in the national parks, play cards, gather park cards and stuff. Trophy book, roll dice. Try not to let them get away. Trouble, roll die. Use a little pop-o-matic thing, roll a die. And then get around the board. Twilight Imperium 3rd Edition and Shattered Empire. I had them, and I didn't really need to have them because we had other players who had copies of the game. But I just wanted my own copy just to study. And, yeah. We're on to 4th edition now, and it changed a lot these days, but it's still a decent game. Twilight Struggle, which I featured as part of my Pillar Plays PC games, because there's the digital implementation. Of course, it slows my computer down like crazy, so I had to like record it with my freaking phone. I've yet to return to that one, but it is a solid 2-player game. Twister. I ought to be innocent back then and not realize just how kind of messed up the game is for multiple people to be that close together in weird positions. The Undercity and Iron Kingdoms adventure board game. There's a scenario. You have your team, and they're fighting against whatever. It has an automated system for the opposition. I was just more curious about more Iron Kingdom stuff when I was in my War Machine era. Urbania, I got it again, so yay. Valparaiso, I've featured it. I no longer have it. I still have my Ventura and War Chest. I don't know why Ventura keeps getting views. I'm kind of surprised. Warcraft, the board game. The short for that one has been getting quite a bit of views, too. With the expansion. That was my first board game, and it still means a lot to me to have a copy. Warhammer 40k 3rd edition was where I started. And, yeah. I kind of miss it. At the same time, I'm not in a big hurry to get back into the game. I keep asking about, what's the scene currently like. And I saw the dwarves, the fantasy dwarves, the space dwarves, or the but someone was telling me, no, don't bother with them. They're not playable. I'm like, what? There was Warhammer 40k Conquest, the living card game, with its first cycle of cards. It was okay. My big issue with the way they were doing the living card games is one set gets you these cards, but it doesn't give you an entire play set of cards. So you're having to buy multiple starter sets, which then screws up the potential for more players. It's just dumb. But Conquest was okay. Warhammer, the game of fantasy battles. Before, they did the whole end times shit and went to Age of Sigmar. It's like, if there's any chance of old Hammer coming back and I can get Ogre Kingdoms and I have the money for it, I miss my Ogre Kingdoms so much. They're my favorite army. Between 40k and Fantasy, I liked 40k better, but Fantasy had my favorite army of all time. Ogre Kingdoms and my favorite magic type of all kind. Gut magic. You eat stuff, you point at an enemy, bad stuff happens. It's funny. War Machine Prime Mark II. I used to have the starter Crix set just for the hell of it. Never got around to playing. I got to play a little bit with Mark II, and I had Signar and my weirdly painted Thunderhead. But apparently when they went to Mark III, they pissed off everybody. At least in this town. Distributors, store, players, people here were done with that game. And now there's a 4th edition, and I don't know if anyone's going to bother coming back to it. War Master. I like the War Master scale. You have a little command person and your set of bases for your units, and then if they take enough wounds, that removes a base, and I think it forces a morale check. But then you've got your command stands for issuing orders. If they fail, they can't issue any more orders. If your general fails, you are done issuing orders for the round. I'd like to look into this one again, but getting more stuff for that game is impossible since the game's out of print. So it's going to come down to who has what and is willing to get rid of it. Warrior Knights, classic game for our group, at least. You have your knights, you have armies that you hire. You have your cards that you play to either set 1, set 2, or set 3, which is when they'll go off after being shuffled for that set and dealt out randomly. And then things can happen like getting money, having to pay people, voting on bureaucratic stuff. And there's what was it, expeditions. Your ships could go and potentially trade someone else and come back with money, or they'll just end up lost. Let's see. There's stuff that was more risky, but also more lucrative if it paid off. It was fun times with that one. But at the same time, it felt like it ended too soon. But I was surprised when I found a copy at freaking Goodwill for like 25 to $30. Yeah. Alright, let's end this. Wasabi, I have it. It's fun. What's Your Adventure game? You saw it when I did my Pillar Plays PC games for it. I kind of miss having a copy of it, though. Worker Placement's a very cheap kind of game in terms of the way it looks, but it's very tongue-in-cheek worker placement game. It's okay, but eh. World of Warcraft trading card game. I miss it, but I'm not willing to play Hearthstone. But that's kind of what got me curious about World of Warcraft in the first place. World of Warcraft miniatures game had an interesting approach. I would like to have done more with that one. I'm sure I could find some pieces as well. World of Warcraft, the adventure game, where you have your own little character and you're on one side of the world doing whatever to get what you need to win. World of Warcraft, the board game, with Shadow of War and the Burning Crusade. You are part of a team. You can work together towards fighting stuff, but ultimately you need to build up your experience and your equipment and go take on the boss. In the base game, there is Lord Kazakh, Kel'Thuzad, and Nefarian. And then the Burning Crusade, if you wanted to stick to the main map, there's Ragnaros. But if you wanted to mess with Outland, what you had was Lady Vaj, Kalthas, and Illidan Stormrage. And that one added some other fun stuff as well. It's an evening kind of game, and it can be tough sometimes. It can be real punishing. But it's a good game. Not listed here, but there's also a World of Warcraft tabletop role-playing game. I saw someone who had it. And I've seen it pop up on eBay as well, but it might be one to look into as well. Wreckage, Cars, and Carnage kind of game from Fantasy Flight. I didn't really get to mess with it that much. Yu-Gi-Oh! The trading card game. I like the artwork, and I despise how much the game hinges on. You better pull not just the rare cards you need to pull the very rare cards to even have a chance at the a playable deck. I believe I've said it before. You open up a booster for Magic, most of the cards are going to be useful. You open up a booster of Yu-Gi-Oh, you're lucky if even the rare card is useful. Maybe one of the commons might be too. It's just the game is very brutal, like that. Zombie dice, roll dice. Try not to get chomped by the zombies. And then zombies! You have your character, you're going to run around shooting zombies and trying to get items and survive. You either need to find the helicopter or you need to score 25 zombie kills. And it's weird to call it a classic at this point, but it is. It's got a ton of expansions. And that is the entire fucking collection. Holy shit. Yeah, if there's any like overlap that it's like, oh hey, I used to have this game too, or I have this game right now. I'm curious to hear about it. This was mainly just trying to get me to talk and stuff because I need to, and I need more opportunities to talk and work on my vocal cords and shit, and now it's just rough. I'm doing this playthrough of Halo, and I'm not really finding good times to talk about anything. Just the action's too intense, and I'm way too into the game. Yeah. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what other people have, in their collections and what they used to have that they miss fondly, or what they're glad they got rid of. If I added in all the games I've played but never owned, we'd be here for a long time. So there's that. All right. If you managed to sit through the entire fucking video and get to this point, thank you. Thank you for watching. This has been Pillar Nexus. Tell me more about your tabletop gaming history. I'll see you next time.